under IPU. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge the House to also adopt the report as it has been tabled, because this is a very important report, Honorable Speaker, and it is an eye-opener. I also want to encourage members to be able to go through them. It is in these reports that you get to see the kind of issues that other parliamentarians are going through. You can be able to draw strength from there. You can be able to get new experiences in regards to the responsibilities and duties that you have as a member of parliament by reading and by going through the things that other parliamentarians are going through in the world over, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I support and I second this particular motion that this House adopts the said report, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. You on a point of order, member for Ndara. You may proceed, Honorable Member for Kandara.
Motion on NGCDF that was deferred because I was still in the chambers, but I wasn't present in here, Madam Speaker.
Member for Kandara.
Yes, sir.
You may take
Madam,
your
sir.
seat.
Thank you, Madam.
Yes, the House Business Committee had scheduled the matter for approval of nominees to NGCDF, and indeed it is true that your constituency is one of those that were scheduled. That is Kandara constituency. The matter was dropped, and I would like to encourage you to make sure that you're in the House. I'm aware that you are engaged in other parliamentary duties, so make sure that you are here next time so that the matter can be transacted in your presence. Thank you. The Honorable Kemei. Before the Honorable Kemei speaks, honorable members, I would like to propose the question that this House notes the reports of Kenya delegation to the 144th and 145th Assemblies of Interparliamentary Union and related meetings held in Nusa Dua, Indonesia, from 20th to 24th March 2022, and in Kigali, Rwanda, from 11th to the 15th of October 2022, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 7th of March 2023, and Thursday, 2nd of March 2023, respectively. Thank you, members. I see a point of order by the Honorable Kemei. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to first, before I talk about the point of order of what you've said, and I'm concerned that yesterday there was a point of order, there was a ruling by the Speaker that such a report should be referred to our Committee on Regional Integration. So let that one go in record so that next time we don't discuss before it is referred. I want to believe that one, Madam Speaker, on point of order 212. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And then allow me again to...
Honorable Member, you are not allowed to raise 2 points of order.
Okay.
Honorable Kemei, the matter that you have raised, and the one that was raised yesterday, was on OACPS, which is different from the matter that is being discussed now, and it is still in consideration. The substantive speaker will be able to rule on that subject. I desist from making any ruling on that matter. The substantive speaker will do so. The Honorable Wilberforce Oundo, you are also on a point of order. What is out of order, Honorable Member?
Honorable Speaker, I wanted to raise on a point of order, but looking at the faces that in the floor of in the House, especially among the newcomers, the first-timers, let me hold on my point of order for the next 20 minutes until the rains subside so that we can know what to do. Honorable Speaker, the joy of coming to Parliament is to speak on the floor of the House. Even if you are speaking to the empty seats, it is worth it because it will go on record that we made a contribution on the floor of the House. That's why I never tire to encourage the first-timers, especially the young ones. In whatever condition you are, always take all the time you can to come to the floor of the House when the veterans have left, when the House leadership have left, and you'll have all the time to say all that you want, so that you learn the art of debating, you learn the art of putting across national points of national importance.
Oundo,
thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Have you decided to let the Speaker imagine the point of order that you wanted to raise?
No, I'm not leading the Speaker to imagine anything. I'm just giving further advice to the young parliamentarians. They learn how we do our things. Myself, Dr. Nyikal, we are veterans here, and we know how things go. But for now, Honorable Speaker, I will wait patient for my turn to contribute on the motion, and if there is any need, we'll raise the point of order at the appropriate time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, so then, Honorable Members, we proceed with debate. The Honorable Florence Jematia, Member for Baringo County. The Honorable Harrison Kombe, Member for Magarini. Honorable members, I'm just relying on the screen that is here. The Honorable Shakil Shabil, Member for Kisumu East. The Honorable Eric Kahungu, Member for... Honorable members, I would like to say that I have actually lost it on the screen. I think it's a matter that may need some noting. The Honorable Wilberforce Oundo, Member for Funyula.
Honorable Speaker, looking at, again, the faces, probably I'm not a very good reader of the mood of the House. All members being called to contribute do not seem to want to contribute, but allow me to make a few comments so that I leave the rest to proceed from there. Honorable Speaker, International Interparliamentary Union is an important body that allows members of parliament from various parts of the world to assemble and ventilate on many, many issues. I'm encouraged that the theme of the last two meetings has been the issue of climate change. And as we mentioned earlier, the issue of climate change is central to the survival of the planet Earth. As we stand here, Honorable Speaker, we hope during the deliberations, the members who attended the meeting, the assembly, appreciated the impact of climate change on several countries in the world, and I hope and do believe they will go, when they go back to their countries, become champions of climate change. I also hope our members, both from the National Assembly and Senate, who attended the subsequent one in the donation from 28th, no, the one on fifth, the one for Fifth Assembly, would have carried enough information from that meeting, that assembly, and they are going to become in the forefront on the issue of championing climate change. Honorable Speaker, until the rain started raining yesterday or the other day, we had experienced one of the worst droughts we have ever seen in this country. For the over 50 years I've been on this planet, this has been one of the worst droughts I have ever seen. Honorable Speaker, when you watch TV, you listen to news, we talk to our colleagues here. Some parts of this country, northeastern, some parts of the upper eastern, were literally devastated to a point that it became unimaginable that this was still part and parcel of the country called Kenya. Therefore, at any given time, hoping these members, a number of them sit in the Committee of Environment, I hope when they are sitting down to budget, to review the budget estimates, they will put enough emphasis on mitigating on the negative impact of climate change. Honorable Speaker, paradoxically, the rains have started. We are going to hear floods sweeping away very many homes, sweeping away plantations, and probably even drowning animals. It's a shame that we have never had any mitigation factors in place to ensure that we harvest water, this rainwater, so that we can use it subsequent seasons when it's dry to avoid such kind of cases. Honorable Speaker, I also hope and believe that our colleagues who go outside there to meet in these assemblies put forth a very strong case for the respect and protection of family values, especially for Africans. I hope they're not going to be coerced, they're not going to be intimidated to come here and start being coy when you talk about the issue of LGBTQ, whatever we call it, and other alien practices that are trying to bring to our place here, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as we continuously say, this is a house of debate, and members must be allowed to debate as they go forth. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the motion, and I hope the findings will find their way in various activities, be legislation or policy in this country and the member countries. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very much. The Honorable Andrew Okwome, member for Karachonyo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this issue. I thank our members of parliament who attended this meeting in Rwanda, and I think the information they have given us is useful, and I do want to appreciate them. Madam Speaker, there are many problems which are common to parliamentarians in terms of their countries. They go through same problems like us, and when our MPs meet the other MPs, they automatically exchange views, and those views, some of them become solutions to our problems. I have in mind climate change, which is really a common problem internationally. I have also in mind economic issues, which really is a big problem, especially for a country like ours. I also do know that in social life, we have common problems, like what we went through on Monday this week. It is a problem that others also go through. As we know, South Africa, for example, had a problem we had. They were picketing and also demonstrating. And one thing which I admire, especially in relation to South Africa, is that they did theirs peacefully and without sending anybody to the grave. That's something we have to admire. And we have to question ourselves and search our souls as to why, with us, wherever we have people exercising their constitutional right in terms of picketing and demonstration, you normally find some lives are lost. We have to admit that we are deficient somewhere and identify those areas for corrective purposes. I'm aware, Madam Speaker, that if somebody asks me who was wrong in this, I clearly will say that our police need to check themselves, because the solution is not with killing your own brothers so that you cause those who see you doing a wrong thing trying to defend themselves using stones, because that's the only available weapon to them. And if they do that, some people say those who threw stones to defend themselves are the wrong ones, and those who use guns to kill those who are exercising their democracy, those are the bad elements. Now, we tend to turn things the other way around. Those kind of things, if I were one of the delegates, I would have really exploited their presence in Rwanda to know how they handle those things. We need to know honestly how we can handle the people who are grieved, people who are saying they are suffering and they are exercising their democratic right, and I would say their constitutional right, so that we do not kill those who are exercising their constitutional rights. Meeting of the minds is important. And what happened in Rwanda when international parliamentarians were meeting there was really a change of ideas, which is very important. So from the report we are given, I urge our members of parliament to see what we lack so that we can improve ourselves. Madam Speaker, with those I support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Eric Kahungu, member for Madira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity this evening to comment on the report that has been brought by the Honorable Member with regard to the members who traveled to Rwanda and other countries. Mr. Speaker, I must say that in this country we have the best reports, Mr. Speaker, but unfortunately, most of those reports ends up in shelves. Most of them, Madam Speaker, they are not implemented. It's my wish that some of these reports, Madam Speaker, they are going to be utilized for the benefits of this country, Madam Speaker. And since they traveled to Rwanda and South Africa and other countries, Madam Speaker, it's my wish that they learned on how Rwanda went through a lot of pain during genocide, Madam Speaker. And what we are experiencing today on Mandamano, Madam Speaker, I hope we can learn on how we can ban a country because of something starting small like Mandamano. I would wish to ask those who are participating in Mandamano. There are so many ways we can solve the issues surrounding the country. The elections, we are done, we finished, we are done with the elections. And Madam Speaker, if it is a must someone be listened after elections, someone who lost an election, it is not through Mandamano. We have lost a life, Rwanda lost lives. It is the learning process we should learn, that it is not a must we do Mandamano, we throw stones, we insult each other. If we are done with elections, if we are defeated, it is a good way to accept that elections have been completed and we move forward with this country. Madam Speaker, most of those people who are calling for Mandamano, they were in the center stage when this economy was ruined down. They were in the center stage when the when the prices of unga went up, Madam Speaker. During those times, they were not speaking. They were not telling us that the prices of unga were hiked. It is only now that the shoe has turned, they are telling us that the prices of unga have gone up. It is my plea, Madam Speaker, that we learn when we go for those trips, when we go to Rwanda, we know what happened in Rwanda. When we go to South Africa, they are also doing mandamano, but they are doing peaceful mandamano, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Madira,
yes,
you are debating very well.
Yes.
But please to stick to the rule of relevance,
yes,
which is in Standing Order 106.
Madam Speaker, I
know you are still learning.
Yes.
But
Madam Speaker, I was only asking that when we go to some of these countries, we learn and we implement those reports. And when we go, we can also learn what happened to those countries when they participated in genocide, in killing each other, in fightings. So I'm only saying, Madam Speaker, that we implement those reports amicably. We don't just shelve them, we implement them, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity.
Very well spoken, Member for Madira. The Honorable Betty Maina, Member for Moranga.
Madam Speaker, my microphone is as short as I am. Probably I can use the next one if you don't mind, but...
Kindly, avail a better mic. The mic that she has is too short for her. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And when the member for Madeira was speaking, he consistently repeated, Mr. Speaker. Maybe kindly to remind them that we have a Madam Speaker and the leadership of this House is coming to birth, that women can be in leadership position. Madam Speaker, I wish to appreciate the members who had visited several countries and they brought a report here. Madam Speaker, I echo the sentiments of my colleague that in this nation we are good at keeping reports in our shelves. As a way of good practice, Madam Speaker, it is prudent for us to be learning from the nations that we visit. A good case study, in South Africa, they were able to arrest and put in jail a former president. These are the good practices we should be learning from these nations that we visit. In Rwanda, we have learned about the Rwanda genocide and the very many things that happened due to bad politics. These are the things that we should be learning as political leaders. And these are the things that as political leaders should guide us when we are practicing bad politics. So thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance. And we continue appreciating you for good job. And we continue urging our fellow parliamentarians to learn about the good practices when we visit countries and we learn what will not pick. So, Madam Speaker, because Madam Speaker, when I wish to comment more about the Rwanda genocide, when you talk about the mandamano, I'm only trying to talk about the things that are happening in this nation. When you talk about mandamano as a bad practice, Madam Speaker, this nation is going through much, and especially we are losing so much in the capital city when people just wake up and decide to go for mandamano. As a good practice, Madam Speaker, we respect the constitution of this nation, whereby when people are elected, they should be given an opportunity to lead, and those who lose in election should give those who won in the election an opportunity to lead as a way of respecting our constitution. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Very well, Member for Moranga. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi, Member for Dagoretti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, Madam Speaker, before I speak on the motion, I just want to send my condolences to many of my families in Dagoretti North, some of the kids who were carried away with water today, this morning. I'm looking at what we are debating. I'm wondering, are we looking at the disaster of this rain? Yet we have government that does not have machinery to even remove children from a river. It has been very sad today. So even as we speak of all this, and we speak about the trips that we go, I want to congratulate Rwanda because they are taking over from Kenya, because of our own corruption, because of what we have done to our country that God blessed us with, a country God gave us. that we can be the hub of Africa. But today, our young people are languishing. Our young people have no jobs. All the jobs have gone to Rwanda. We have NBA today in Rwanda. We have another hub coming in Rwanda. It is so sad that it is Kenyans who have built Rwanda, and Rwanda that is flourishing. But here, because of the 10 years of lust of money, 10 years, Madam Speaker, that we went through, people thinking of themselves, we have killed Kenya. We as leaders in this house, we do as if it's a joke. We play around. Madam Speaker, I am a victim that was taken to Hague to stand in a gap between the former president and now the president, something that I have never spoken of. That is why it's not that I can't do mandamano. I have seen what it can bring to a family. I have seen how a family can go to hell. You pray, you fast to come out of things you never did. And men are the ones who signed my signature, not me myself. So as we speak for that, I want us to focus to Kenya. I want to speak to my government, to our government, because they are the government of the day. Sometimes you need to be a David. You must be a David that looked at Saul and did what was right for Israel. Sometimes pride can take you to a wrong direction. And therefore, if we do not have leaders in this house who can face the president, face the former prime minister, and tell them, look, there is Kenya beyond all of you, then we will be fearing to do what is just for this country. Madam Speaker, we need a third force that comes and says, this is right. You don't need to be a person who will see young people. You are joking with these things you are talking about. Yesterday it was a joke. Let me tell you how it comes to divide us in Nairobi. That is the time you'll see young people, those defending their properties, those who don't have properties, will be the ones now being eaten. They will eat themselves alive. Us who are laughing here, trying to please to get a ticket of 2027, the other one trying to please to show the Kenyan how you can speak for your president. Excuse me, we will be left, we will be found again. They will come for us. They will come for us.
What is out of order, member for Madera?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is it in order
Would you like to state the standing order?
The standing order that says you need to substantiate on a statement you're making on the floor of the House, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, is it in order for Honorable Elachi to insinuate that His Excellency William Ruto is the president for Kalenjins only because she stated that when a Kalenjin asks about your president, Madam Speaker, I don't find it in order, Madam Speaker, when Honorable Elachi says that His Excellency William Ruto is the president for Kalenjin, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Beatrice Elachi, please respond to the matter that has been raised by the member for Madera.
I have no in any Hansard has said the president is a Kalenjin president. I have said, and I want to repeat it so that it goes on the standing orders in the Hansard, that as we joke and enjoy the game here, and we want to please the president, that I am a Kalenjin, I have spoken for my president, I am a Luo, or I am a Rio, I've spoken for Raila, that is what I mean. And I am calling both of them. By the way, thank God I was given one grace. I would wish to tell when my president is doing right, this you have done right. I have wished to tell my party leader, this is right, right. And God give me the grace that I will remain that way. I will never allow myself to come and say something that I know as women of Kenya, we are going to suffer because these are our children. This is our children. They are not the children of any other person. Just the way the mama of Baringo is crying with bandits, just the way the mama of Nairobi is crying for unga, just the way the mama of Central is crying for her unga, is the same mother the same pain. All I am saying as leaders, that even as we speak and appreciate the trips we go, our country.
Honorable Beatrice Elachi, you seem to be continuing with debate, and since this is a House of Records, the clerks have reviewed the statement you made, and you have not
Madam
said...
Speaker, I withdraw. If that is the issue, I withdraw that statement then. If that will please us, I've withdrawn. Because I didn't say. I gave an example of how we debate. We debate for people to see us. We debate to see. I am so-and-so debating. That's all I was saying.
The Honorable Beatrice Elachi,
I withdraw.
According to the record, you did not say that. The records are clear.
Yes.
So you do not need to withdraw.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker.
The explanation that
yes,
you have made already explains, and I believe that the Honorable Member for Madira
and I can never say
satisfied.
that. I know the President is the President of...
You may
see,
proceed.
This is a President of Kenya. I am not crazy also. I don't play those politics. But then, Madam Speaker, all I'm saying, we can bring back Kenya. We can make Kenya survive. We can bring it back if we are willing as leaders in this House to also, when we see the executive do something that is not right, just tell them it's not right. As I finalize, Madam Speaker, we were supposed to have a debate of CDF in this House. And I want to ask the government, you gave 14 billion for CDF, the balance is 33 billion. We need the resources. We only have 11 weeks after we come for recess. We shall not be able, even the government cannot be able to disburse that money. GAF only got 1 billion, and we need GAF to be given their 2 billion. With that, Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you, Honorable Beatrice. I see a point of order by the Honorable Beatrice Kemei, member for Kericho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on point of order 35. Standing order, sorry. Looking around, I don't think we have quorum, Madam Speaker.
Well, honorable members, I order that the bell be rung for 10 minutes. Honorable members, kindly be guided that you cannot leave the House when the bell is being rung, so you can't leave, honorable members. Honorable members, 10 minutes is over. And Honorable member, standing order number 322 states that if on the count under paragraph 1, a quorum does not appear to be present, the speaker or the chairperson shall cause the division bell to be rung. And if no quorum is present at the expiry of the 10 minutes, now the House will be adjourned. So, honorable members, and the time now being 7 minutes past 5 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 11th day of April 2023 at 2:30 p.m.
I have personally gone through these standing orders to see at what point a senator raised on a point of order. And the only standing order that allows a senator to raise on a point of order is standing order number 98. And I'll read it for the benefit of those who don't want to read these standing orders. This is what it provides. Any senator may raise on a point of order at any time during the speech of another senator, stating that the senator raises a point of order and that the senator shall be required to indicate the standing order upon which the point of order is based. It is the only standing order that touches on the subject of a point of order. If there's other standing order that speaks to a point of order, I stand guided. So proceed, Senator Joyce.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Now, Senator Murango, what is...
Mstahiki Spika, nasimama kwa kanuni za kudumu 109 Taski.
Senator Murangwa.
Mstahiki Spika, nasimama kwa msingi wa kanuni za kudumu 109 ambayo inaongea kuhusu kuhitimisha mjadala, na kwa hiyo natoa hoja kwamba mtoaji wa hoja sasa haitwe kujibu, na naomba Joyce Koril kuunga mkono hoja yangu.
Senators, can we take our seats, please? Senator Murangwa, I want to rule on your point of order. Looking at my dashboard and the interest that this matter has generated, I don't think this is the right time to call the mover to reply. It is... Majority Leader, arm yourself with the standing orders, please. Okay, I want you to read Standing Order 109, 1, the whole of it. For the benefit of other senators, kindly read it aloud.
Mr. Speaker, you've asked me to read Standing Order number 109-1. I hope you'll also allow me to make just a comment in a minute on why I thought about it.
Just reading. Honorable Senator Sifuna, the orderly conduct of this business is the business of the chair.
Yeah.
Kindly let me do my job. Proceed, Senator Cheriot. Reading that particular standing order, you don't need to explain yourself.
Mr. Speaker, after the question of a motion, on a motion of the mover of which has a right of reply has been proposed, a senator rising in his or her place may claim to move, in quotes, that the mover be now called upon to reply. And unless the Speaker is of the opinion that such a motion is an abuse of the proceedings of the House, of the Senate, or an infringement of the right of senators, the question that, still in quotes, that the mover be now called upon to reply, shall be put forthwith and decided with an amendment of or debate, or without amendment or debate. And if that question is agreed to, the mover may immediately reply to the debate as soon as the mover has concluded. Or if the mover does not wish to reply, the Speaker shall put the question subject to Standing Order 66.3, manner of debate of motions.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Clearly, that particular standing order gives powers to the Speaker to rule. Thank you. Senator Joyce.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to debate on this very important motion. Yes. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that I must also congratulate the members of this House for debating soberly on this matter. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the issues that has been raised by Procedures and Rules Committee are issues that are touching on Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. And by so saying is that, Honorable Speaker, there are a number of questions, there are a number of statements, there are a number of petitions that have been brought to this House, Honorable Speaker, that takes a lot of time before it is responded to, Honorable Speaker. And I want also to say this, Honorable Speaker, that the number of committees that we have, Honorable Speaker, sometimes gives a rough time to the cabinet ministers, Honorable Speaker, in terms of answering those questions. And also, Honorable Speaker, I'm also bringing another attention to the members, Honorable Speaker, who are opposing this motion, that sometimes you find a committee has raised a question, and because of a lot of work or maybe laxity in the relevant ministry, they just copy-paste answers and give to members, which sometimes also, which force members to also disagree on those answers, Honorable Speaker, making it another round or taking rounds, Honorable Speaker, before the question is answered. It's high time, Honorable Speaker, that we approve or we support this motion to be able to give us room to discuss these issues in the floor of the House, Honorable Speaker, and get instant answers, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, the members from the other divide are equally in order because it's a house of debate. But I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, that the reason why we have the various jurisdictions in this country, Honorable Speaker, is because of the interpretation of the laws. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that we have competent secretariat in this parliament who can assist us in terms of interpreting and even drafting of these amendments, which I want to say, Honorable Speaker, they cannot come to the floor of the House unless it has been scrutinized, Honorable Speaker. So it's high time for this House and for our members from the other divide to know that anything that is in this floor of the House has been really scrutinized. Though they have the right to debate, at the end of the day, the majority has their way. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I just want to say I support this motion, and we are looking forward to assisting our brothers to stop them from going to maandamanos, asking for questions from innocent Kenyans, asking for a lot of issues from the innocent Kenyans, and they can bring those questions into this House, Honorable Speaker. I want to say this because the moment we give them room to go around in the streets, Honorable Speaker, to raise this question, they are derailing the development of this country, and they have the right place to raise their question. That is why they have been given the mandate by the members of the public. So it's a high time, Honorable Speaker, that they agree with us on this issue, because at the end of the day, what they need is the answers. What they need is to see the cabinet ministers. This is the platform that they are using to ask those questions and be able to answer to the constituents, Honorable Speaker. Otherwise, I totally support, and we are looking forward to implementing the same. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I can see a number of senators wanting to raise on a point of order, and I'll call one after the other so that we dispense with them. Senator Kajwang Moses. Senator Eddie Gisheru. Senator Olekina Ledama. Honorable Senators, there being no other senator wishing to contribute as per my dashboard, I now call the mover to reply. Senator Paris, unfortunately, it was captured after I've made the ruling.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank colleagues who have taken time to contribute to this motion, those in support and those opposed. That is the beauty of our democracy, Mr. Speaker, that while many will agree with you, there are some who will not agree with you, but we are a constitutional democracy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while registering my remarks, I must continue to remind the country to be alive to the kind of democracy we are seeing in the Senate these days, where when the minority side senses defeat in any motion, they walk out. That is why, Mr. Speaker, they can never accept even IBC results, because they are not Democrats. A proper Democrat, Mr. Speaker, and I've been in this House the whole of the last 5 years, I was in the minority. We used to remain only 7 of us in this House, Mr. Speaker, and we would speak, make our point, and eventually go ahead and lose honorably, because that's the beauty of democracy, Mr. Speaker. I have listened to the contribution of colleagues who are concerned, Mr. Speaker, that there has been a wish list that had been presented by senators in Mombasa, I don't know in which part of the country. Mr. Speaker, what you are debating is a motion that has been brought to us by the Procedures and Rules Committee in reaction to a letter that I wrote requesting that the standing orders be amended, Mr. Speaker. If the minority side wishes to convince the same committee, I'm sure they know the procedures, Mr. Speaker. And indeed, one of them had tried to do so. Senator Mohamed Faki of Mombasa tried to move the committee to allow that leadership of the delegated legislation be granted to the minority side. And I listened to the contribution by Senator Moses Kajwang. Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid that he misled this House, because if you argue that because statutory documents and regulations that come to this House come from the executive, it is only the minority that can oversight them, then why do we have chairmanship on this side of other committees? Because almost all bills and businesses that come to this House indeed come from the same executive. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do not agree with those who hold the view, like him, that delegated legislation needs to be a committee chaired. And I agree with the findings of your committee, Mr. Speaker. Of course, and I want to be quick about this. Mr. Speaker, I have seen the pain that you have gone through this afternoon, trying to explain yourself and being drawn into a debate. In fact, you are so magnanimous, because if I was seated on your chair, I would not have allowed Senator Umtata to get away with the words that he used on the Speaker, claiming that what the Speaker is now doing is conduct and becoming. Indeed, those will be left in the copies of the Hansard of this House, Mr. Speaker. But because of the unique situation of where you find yourself in, you had to allow. I will have you remember something, Mr. Speaker, that in the National Assembly in the 12th Parliament, Speaker J.B. Muturi, now Attorney General, seated where you are, found himself in a situation such as the one that you find yourself in this evening, Mr. Speaker.
where a member of the National Assembly had behaved in a disorderly manner. Powers and Privileges Committee, which was chaired by the Speaker as per their standing orders, went and investigated the matter and recommended some sanctions against that particular member. Unfortunately, when that motion of that report was brought to the House, it was defeated on the floor of the House. If you read the exit report of that incident, Mr. Speaker, the Speaker actually recommended that it is not proper that a Speaker be allowed to chair a committee which will be subject to proceedings of a House which they'll come and chair. And I agree with you because I've seen the struggle and the difficulty with which you've had to explain yourself, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I agree that there should be a consideration. I don't think it is a wise decision, now having learned from experience, Mr. Speaker, and seeing what has happened this afternoon, to give the Speaker chairmanship of a committee whose duty or whose works will be subject of debate in this House. Perhaps maybe we may want to restrict it only to Senate Business Committee, which, for reasons of how Senate is run, indeed must be chaired by the Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I listened to Senator Okiya Omtata very keenly. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid that his reading of a constitution is either lopsided or he has challenges in how he reads and understands this constitution. Article 153 of our constitution, Mr. Speaker, speaks as to how members of the cabinet shall transact business with this House, Mr. Speaker. It speaks rather that they shall give regular updates of matters that are under their control. What we are doing, Mr. Speaker, is that we are providing the how. Because there is nowhere in this constitution, and I wish the Democrats from the minority side can learn the proper practices of parliamentary democracy, where you speak and you wait for others also to give their opinion instead of running away like cowards, Mr. Speaker. I would have them know that there is no clause whatsoever in the Constitution that bars cabinet ministers from coming to this House, making their presentation. We can have a debate. I know maybe members feel very sentimental about these seats. But let them know that, Mr. Speaker, many of the cabinet members, especially in this cabinet, have been in parliament for 10 years, 15, 20. There's nothing exciting about having this seat. But for their comfort, Mr. Speaker, in fact, I know that part of what will be proposed, because I know there have been occasions where we have had members, non-members of this House, come and debate in this House, Mr. Speaker, and we have provided a place where they stand and respond to questions, where we normally put governors. Perhaps that is a good place to suggest for ministers to come and answer these questions if there are members who feel uncomfortable on where they'll sit. Otherwise, when we have the committee of the whole and you have invited a speaker and have a sitting of the entire plenary, that is where members of cabinet normally sit. They sit in this House. I do not wish to be long about this topic because I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, that there are members who are traveling out of town for parliamentary engagement. With those very many remarks, I want to appreciate the senators that have taken time to sit down, listen to debate, and now that as we bring it to a close, I appreciate their industry, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I beg to move. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, the mover having replied, affect counties, and therefore I'll proceed to put the question. Honorable Senators, the pursuant to Standing Orders 267 and 270, the Senate approved the fifth report of the Procedure and Rules Committee on periodic amendments of the Standing Orders of the Senate, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 21st March 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 124(1) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 270 and 272, resolves to amend its standing orders as contained in Appendix 2 of the report, and 2, orders that the amendments to the standing orders as contained in Appendix 2 to the report come into effect on the 11th of April 2023. Honorable Senators, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Honorable Senators, will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order, clerk.
Order number 10, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022, second reading, division.
I call him.
Okay, let's proceed. Honorable Senators, we are deferring business and order number 9 to the next sitting. Next order.
Order number 11, the County Vocational Education and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable Senators, this debate was interrupted on Tuesday, 21st March, and Senator Sifuna was on the floor. He has 4 minutes. If he is around, he can proceed and utilize his 4 minutes. If he is not, we go to any other next contributor. And surprisingly, I don't see any person interested in this to debate. Senator Nyotu, you want to contribute?
Mr. Speaker, we have already sat as a committee and deliberated on all the provisions of that bill. And so it's ready, I think, for tabling by Senator Kajwang, who was the mover. So I do not have any contribution to make as of now.
No, this motion is under debate now.
Oh,
so
sorry.
I'm opening the floor for debate.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I had not prepared some notes for debate on this because we had deliberated on it, as I have said, at the committee level. And so I think we may invite other senators to make their contributions, Mr. Speaker.
Actually, as Chair Education, we are very happy because you are one of the chairs who has brought a report before the second reading of a bill. I'm encouraging many other chairs to do the same, so that members can debate with information. So thank you very much, Education Committee.
Thank you for the compliments,
yes,
Mr. Speaker.
So, interested to contribute, then I call the mover to reply, who is Senator Kajwang, the owner of this motion. If he is not around, then we defer to another sitting, next sitting. Next order.
Order number 12, the Agricultural and Livestock Extension Services Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2022, second reading.
Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, the mover to move. If she's not present, then we go to the next one. The motion is deferred.
Order number 13, the Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2022, second reading.
Thank you, Senator Danson Mungatana.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill, Bill 2022, be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a very, very important bill, and it should have come yesterday. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a bill that proposes to give effect to one of the most important constitutional articles that we passed in the 2010 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, in constitutional law, there are those that are called first-generation rights. And these first-generation rights, Mr. Speaker, are those rights where the people who fought for independence, for example, in this country, they fought because their lives, their right to life, their right to living without discrimination, their right to living in a land that they call their own, their right, Mr. Speaker, the basic human rights who are being derogated by the colonialists. Mr. Speaker, those rights resulted in the independence freedom fighters, and it's not just in Kenya. But when you look across the African continent, Mr. Speaker, you would find that people, legends like Sam Nujoma of SWAPO, legends like Nelson Mandela of the Umkhonto we Sizwe, and many others, Mr. Speaker, Robert Mugabe, they fought because of the first generation rights. They fought so that their people can get what belonged to them and the colonialists had taken from them. Mr. Speaker, then these people set up the first governments, and after these first governments were set up, we started talking about the second generation rights. And these second generation rights, Mr. Speaker, are basically economic rights. The 2010 constitution that brought a new era into Kenya, it tried to capture the socio-economic rights that we also know as second generation rights. And Mr. Speaker, these rights, they deal with the way that people should live in a dignified manner, in a way that ensures they have decent housing, they have a source of income, they have socio-economic rights that they exercise. within the country in which they exist. So, Mr. Speaker, this is one of the acts of parliament that was supposed to be brought so that the economic and social rights of our people in this country can be realized. And Mr. Speaker, this bill, it tries to set up the framework in which there will be preservation of the dignity of the Kenyan people. There will also be promotion and monitoring of the social rights that are sought to be enforced in this bill. There will be, Mr. Speaker, mechanisms that will be established also to monitor and promote the social and economic rights of the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, there will be a requirement for county governments to adhere to the promotion of these social and economic rights. So that, Mr. Speaker, this Senate will be setting a new order that will be requiring all 47 counties to reshape their budgets, to reshape their approach to budget making, so that, Mr. Speaker, at the end of it, the Constitution is achieved, the constitutional goals are achieved. And the main one in this particular case being the giving or guaranteeing of the peoples in the Kenya, in the various counties, their social and economic rights. Mr. Speaker, what are these economic and social rights that we are talking about? This bill defines them in proposed section 2 of the bill, and they say these are the rights accruing to every person in this country, and they are captured under Articles 43, 1 and 53, 1C of the current Constitution. Mr. Speaker, they include the highest attainable standards of health, which includes the right to healthcare services. Mr. Speaker, very many counties, including my own county, Mr. Speaker, Tana River County, health services have degraded. Emergency services are degraded. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County today, if you happen to fall sick and you need emergency treatment, the Hola Referral Hospital would quickly write a note for you to go to Kilifi County Hospital, which is our neighbor, or they will take you to Garissa. Mr. Speaker, those are not referral hospitals, but because of the degraded situations of the hospitals, Mr. Speaker, that is the current situation obtaining. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, tends to force county governments to treat healthcare as an emergency, as a social and economic right that must be guaranteed by the counties. Not only in Tana River County, Mr. Speaker, but also in other counties. This bill forces the governors in various counties to make sure that the rights, the socio-economic rights of the people are not degraded and forgotten about. Mr. Speaker, it includes accessible to adequate housing. Mr. Speaker, adequate housing is a problem, especially in urban areas. this bill will force counties to start thinking about real provision of housing for their people, to start thinking about how our people who are living in various counties are going to be housed. Mr. Speaker, this bill will force counties in their development plans to capture the need for housing for our people, because this bill will force them to think about this right of housing in the long term. So that, Mr. Speaker, we will be forced, like in European countries, American countries, and even some of the more advanced nations in other parts of the world, that when you are planning in a county, when you are planning in a state, you are forced to even plan for new housing, new cities, new amenities for people in advance, because you are looking at the statistics of the birth rates. So this is one of those bills that is going to force the planning to take into account housing. Mr. Speaker, reasonable standards of sanitation must be guaranteed by all county governments under this bill. Mr. Speaker, if you go to very many parts of the nation, including the major cities of this country, including the city, the capital city of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, sanitation is a problem. It is not only a problem in the major cities, even in cities that are coming, in urban centers that are coming, in municipalities that are coming up, such as the Hola municipality. Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County, you will find that when it rains, Mr. Speaker, there is a problem. Water cannot move. Houses are so close. There is no proper sanitation system. Mr. Speaker, we appreciate the World Bank grant that has been given, and it is being applied in various municipalities, including my own municipality in Hola County, in Hola town. Mr. Speaker, that World Bank grant is the first attempt at trying to set up proper sanitation systems. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is going to be saying the county governments will be, it will be forced to think about sanitation in terms of planning in the allocation of resources. Mr. Speaker, reasonable standards of clean water and safe waters in adequate quantities. Mr. Speaker, many counties suffer water shortages. Many counties suffer inadequate or unsafe water facilities. Mr. Speaker, I can say with authority that a county such as Tana River, the Tana River Water Resources Organization, the TAWASCO, has failed the people. For many days, people will go without water. And when the bills come, they will come like you have been collecting water and receiving water throughout. The water that comes, they bring the same water from Tana River, the River Tana. The water that comes from your tap is brown. And it becomes very difficult for the people even to be sure that the water they are receiving is clean and safe. Mr. Speaker, this bill addresses itself to standards of water that is provided to the people. It forces county governments, Mr. Speaker, such as my county and many other counties, to think about putting money, proper money, and proper reticulation systems, that the water they are providing to the people in our 47 counties, it is water that is safe, that meets hygienic standards, that, Mr. Speaker, can support proper life on their counties. Mr. Speaker, this bill also it talks about the right to be free from hunger and to provide adequate food and in adequate quantities to the people. Mr. Speaker, this bill is trying to say that there are social and economic rights within the Constitution. And this is now the bill that is forcing those rights to be enforced in our counties. Mr. Speaker, right now, before the rains started, people have been going hungry. You find many children unable to attend school because there is no food. Mr. Speaker, pictures have been circulated in some of our social media in Tana River County, for example. You find a child has gone to school. They have struggled because they want to get education, and they have walked all the way to school. But then when they reach school, Mr. Speaker, the same child is found sleeping, actually sleeping on the floor. Because during lunchtime, when there is a break, the child is not able to play. The child is not able to be effective in terms of even communication with the other children. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is making it compulsory for county governments, not just in Tana River County, but in all 47 counties, that in their planning, they will give effect to social and economic rights, which include the right to have food. Governors, going forward, they will be forced to plan that the population which they are leading are not people who are dying of starvation. Mr. Speaker, in this bill, there is a requirement that national government and county government, they work together so that these two levels of government can deal with the actual needs of the people. Mr. Speaker, while we have hunger in this country, Mr. Speaker, you will find that the priorities that have occupied certain counties, Mr. Speaker, are not reflecting of the hunger situation. You'll find many of them are starting, they have planned to construct new buildings. Not grain storages, Mr. Speaker. Not water pans where they can tap water. They are planning, Mr. Speaker, to buy new cars for the governors who have just been elected, Mr. Speaker. They will find money, Mr. Speaker, for new housing for speakers, new housing or completion of housing for governors who have not built their houses. They will find money for allowances to travel trips, to go for trainings, to go abroad, and they will take big, nice pictures, Mr. Speaker, of county delegations visiting all over the world. But the planning is not capturing the fact that there is hunger. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a bill that will force county governments, will force county assemblies and the treasuries in those counties to make sure that they are planning for the basic necessity, the dignity of the human person, the Kenyan person. He will now have an opportunity to say truly, independence has come. Mr. Speaker, this bill is intent on giving social security and social assistance to the lowest of the law. Mr. Speaker, county governments and the national governments under this bill, they will be forced to look at their budgets and see how they can support people who are at the bottom of the ladder. Mr. Speaker, this bill is saying that county governments must come up with creative ways. There must be no people sleeping hungry in your places. In European countries, Mr. Speaker, where they have social democracy and their governments are in power, you will find that they will create in the local authorities something called soup kitchen, where people are allowed to go and eat something. You don't sleep hungry in that country, Mr. Speaker. They create areas where if life has beaten you, it has battered you to the point that you've lost all, you can run to a place which is a shelter. And, Mr. Speaker, you organize yourself. They are not very good, but you organize yourself. You don't die. You organize yourself in time for you to go back to the workforce. Mr. Speaker, in the US and in various states, they provide for food coupons as part of their social assistance agenda, depending on which state you come from. Mr. Speaker, food coupons are given to people who maybe are out of work. They don't have food, and literally they are starving. So they are allowed to access a coupon which they can take to, say, in our country, if you are to localize it, you can take to Tuskegee supermarket. And those food coupons are specific. They'll be saying you are allowed to take maybe 3 or 4 packets of unga, 1 packet of rice, and so on, sugar, and so on. And the food coupon, once it is given to the owner of that supermarket, it becomes cash for him, because when he takes it and goes to the bank, it is converted into his actual funds. So, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the objects and purposes of this bill, they actually capture the provisions of the Constitution that address themselves to the economic and social rights of the people of Kenya. And they try, and this bill tries to enforce it. Mr. Speaker, there has not been a bill that has really tried to come to make it happen. Mr. Speaker, it has been left to political parties to try and say we are a social democracy, or we are going to do this when we get into power. We will give you 6,000 every household. It has been left to political leaders. Governors have come up with manifestos, different governors. At the presidential level, political parties and candidates have come with different manifestos. But, Mr. Speaker, these manifestos are not based in law. It is just a program that may or may not be followed. But this bill is saying that you are now required by law, when we pass this bill, to ensure that there is human dignity. So one of the major objects and purposes of this act is to make sure the preservation of the human dignity is there. Mr. Speaker, this bill brings the realization of economic and social rights by national and county governments. Mr. Speaker, with this bill, every president will now have to be bottom up. Every governor will now have to be bottom up. They'll have to be thinking of the lowest people in our land. Because this bill, when it becomes law, Mr. Speaker, it will force the national and county governments to realize economic and social rights for the people of Kenya. It will force them. It will be now mandatory, very mandatory, for the national government to plan and think, how are the lowest of the law going to be protected under my government, under my administration? It will force every governor by law to make sure that the lowest of the law in his county are protected. Mr. Speaker, this bill, in its objects and purposes, also says we want to create a monitoring mechanism. So it has not been left to the president or the governor to do as he pleases, to make sure that maybe it is only one program that will succeed, the others no. There is established in this bill, it is proposed to establish a mechanism that will monitor. It will monitor to see that food is given to the hungry people. It will monitor to see that water is made available to the people of your county and the nation. It will monitor this mechanism that is proposed in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Will monitor that adequate water, adequate housing, adequate sanitation, Mr. Speaker, is achieved under any administration, whether it is this governor or this president, and when they move out, those programs must continue with the next government in the county level and the next government in the national level. Mr. Speaker, there is the application of the Equalization Fund. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, the Equalization Fund has not had a way in which it can work. There's been a problem even in defining which are the marginalized areas. For us who have been in leadership for some time, and having walked across this breadth and length of our nation, we know that there are some areas where there is always rain. Some counties where there is always food. And we know there are counties which have shortfall of rainfall. We know that there are counties that will not also have rain and they suffer from drought for a long time. Mr. Speaker, the marginalized areas are supposed to be the beneficiaries of this Equalization Fund that was set up under the Constitution. And the reason being that the Equalization Fund was supposed to help counties such as Tana River County, which have been left behind, Mr. Speaker, because of poor government policies of successive government, where there was, in fact, formalization through some white papers that there will be areas that will be developed and others which will be left behind. Apparently, those areas that are supposed to be developed, Mr. Speaker, are those areas that are supposed to be high potential. Mr. Speaker, this Equalization Fund is supposed to benefit counties such as ourselves. You'll find there is very little road network in terms of tarmac roads in a place like Tana River County, Mr. Speaker. You will find that there is very little in terms of real infrastructure developments, like a lot of electricity. Just a few in towns and that's it, Mr. Speaker. So this bill, Mr. Speaker, it wants to make this fund operational. This fund was supposed to work for only 20 years. But leaders have not been able to agree. Counties that we know are rich, they have good soils, they have been receiving grains, they have been having surpluses in terms of agriculture. They have also come back to say, we are also marginalized in some parts. So it has been difficult to agree on what is a marginalized area. So this bill attempts, Mr. Speaker, to resolve that problem, that impasse. That impasse, Mr. Speaker, has made Treasury to have this money stay in Treasury, a justification that has continued to deny the people who deserve to have this money come to their counties. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is a very good bill because it attempts, if it is passed today, at least there is an attempt to start operationalization of this equalization fund. Mr. Speaker, in fact, now I am aware that the 20 years period that was allocated to the equalization fund are almost coming to an end without the equalization fund actually being operationalized because of squabbles. This bill, Mr. Speaker, it attempts to sort out that problem, and it attempts to bring a mechanism in which we know who are the marginalized areas by law, and so who are supposed to receive the equalization fund. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a bill that creates a mechanism for the national government and the county government to cooperate in dealing with the real issues affecting our people in this country. Mr. Speaker, we know that some of the county governments have had their priorities in terms of budgeting, up and down. And we witness this, Mr. Speaker, when you sit in the Senate Public Accounts Committees, when they are being grilled by the Senate Public Accounts Committee, you'd see a lot of these counties, Mr. Speaker, they are not just prioritizing what is the people's needs. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill attempts to put the people in front. It attempts to force even the national government to put the people in front. And not just this president, Mr. Speaker, but future president. They will be forced to cooperate with county government so that the needs of the people at the lower scale of the dichotomy of the economy will benefit. Mr. Speaker, this bill, it goes on to promote sustainable development. Why I say sustainable is because, Mr. Speaker, if only the GDP is measured in terms of the top people, there's so much maybe industrialization taking place, but people are hungry. Mr. Speaker, that is not sustainable. Mr. Speaker, as I've said before, this bill is involved, very much keyed in the promotion of good governance and accountability to every bearer of office, Mr. Speaker, so that for the first time, Mr. Speaker, if this bill is implemented, then for the first time, transparency and accountability, availability of services will be enhanced by law. Mr. Speaker, national government has been given obligations, and equally, county governments have been given obligations under this bill. Mr. Speaker, the national government will have to formulate and implement policies, strategies, and legislations that will bring to realization social and economic rights. Mr. Speaker, which means every president who will come to Kenya will have this continuing burden that they must come up with ideas, they must come up with new formulations, with new policies, Mr. Speaker, that will carry the majority of our people who are in the lower scale of the economy. Mr. Speaker, the national government is enforced by this bill, by the passing of this bill, to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that every social service will be made available, Mr. Speaker. And they will have to report what they are doing towards making the social services available so that our people can start living decent lives. Mr. Speaker, I have the singular honor of heading the delegation for the Pan-African Parliament. And just the other day, Mr. Speaker, we were in Midrand, South Africa, for a session of the Pan-African Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, part of the duty is to also look at what other countries are doing. Mr. Speaker, we had the opportunity to have a reconnaissance in Soweto. Yes, it is supposed to be a slum, Mr. Speaker. And it is supposed to be one of the biggest slums, like others that are supposed to be, Alexandria and so on. But Mr. Speaker, when you go to those places, there is tarmac roads. There are tarmac roads, there is electricity, water is flowing, there is sanitation. Okay, the houses are small, maybe overcrowded, but there's a roof and a decent life. And the African National Congress government has made it a priority to ensure that some of their promises, of course, like all other governments, they are not fulfilling everything, but some of their promises are working. Mr. Speaker, if you visit those places, yes, they may not have everything, but it's a decent place. You can sleep and go away the next day. Mr. Speaker, contrary to what you will see in a country like Kenya, some of our slums, Mr. Speaker, if there is a fire that occurs in those areas, Mr. Speaker, even emergency services to save life, to preserve life, will not be able to access those areas because there are no roads. When you look properly, sanitation is lacking, no adequate facilities for the people. And yet, Mr. Speaker, to our shame, these are the people who come out in large numbers to vote. They put a lot of faith in us. Even, Mr. Speaker, the alleged protests and maandamanos that are being arranged, the people who are being coerced or induced or easily influenced to come out are these same people who form the bulk of our voters. And Mr. Speaker, to our shame, we have never really taken that effort. I think during the time of President Mwai Kibaki, it was the first time that there was an effort at constructing some housing in these low-income areas. And I remember the then Langata MP, the Honorable Raila Odinga, was the first beneficiary of such a project. But it didn't go far enough, Mr. Speaker, because of bad politics. People started saying, oh, what government, come and take your houses. Mr. Speaker, it is different in other parts of the world. And what we are saying is that other national governments that are going to come will now be forced to confront the poverty and the life that our people are living in. That person who comes to drive you, that person who makes your tea, that person who is pushing paper, your secretary and whatever, the lives they live, the leadership by coming into power, into law of this proposed bill, the leadership of our people will be forced to actually address and confront the realities of our people. Mr. Speaker, it will be an obligation of the national government to create and put in place adequate infrastructure that would be necessary to meet the obligation of realizing economic and social rights. Mr. Speaker, the national government will be told they must put this infrastructure. They must go into debt or borrowing or investment or whatever they need to do, but they must put the infrastructure to address the problems of our people. Mr. Speaker, even if it means ceding some land, because some of the people are living in the same Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, very big areas. You know, somebody lives alone in in 5 acres, alone, 5 acres alone. And because it is so big, he is so insecure. Somebody lives in 10 acres in this same Nairobi, where people are crowded, 10 people living within a small area of occupation. It will force governments, both at the national, to think about these things and to see whether there can be reallocation of land. Purchase these lands from those people who don't need it. Reorganize settlements. Plan for the people who are at the bottom. Let us all be called socialists, but we are thinking about our people. Mr. Speaker, the obligations of the national governments are actually great because they include having a proper campaign to sensitize citizens, Mr. Speaker, on their obligations and duty to ensure that the rights of other citizens are not infringed. Mr. Speaker, the national and county governments, both of them have been given serious responsibilities that, Mr. Speaker, will help towards making these rights a reality. Now, Mr. Speaker, a commission is proposed, Mr. Speaker, that will help in terms of the monitoring and evaluation. And this commission, Mr. Speaker, will help us in terms of getting real results in all these beautiful ideas that have been proposed. Mr. Speaker, in part 4 of this act, proposed act, in this bill, Mr. Speaker, it will be compulsory for county governments to have strategic plans that will address these problems. And each county, Mr. Speaker, will have to deal with programs that are specifically targeted at moving people from the bottom, and if they are there, making them live in a decent and dignified manner. Mr. Speaker, this is a difficult bill, very difficult bill, because it is a bill that needs a lot of thinking, a lot of planning. And Mr. Speaker, it needs a lot of input, and I'm very grateful to the Committee for Legal for the work they have put in this bill. Mr. Speaker, we are willing to absorb every idea that is coming. We are willing to look at every idea, but somebody must start the train. If we are amending this bill, let's amend it as we go, but we must get going. There must be an effort to start the movement towards helping our people to live a dignified and decent life. This bill is the first attempt. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to just leave it there and say that I am calling upon my colleagues, those who are listening to me over the broadcast, those who are listening to me physically and virtually, Mr. Speaker, let's support this bill. I'm asking my colleagues to be bipartisan about this. Poverty is in both sides, and the challenges are on both sides. These ideas can be improved. We will be welcoming any idea that comes from the other side or this side, minority and majority, because this is a bill that is talking about our people. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time. And I would invite Majority Leader, the Honorable Senator Cheriot, to second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, second the bill.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for this chance. I beg to second this bill that has been brought to us by Senator Danson Buya Mungatana, among the many that inspired me to love this work that we do here, the work of Parliament. Watching him back then as a university student, every afternoon as I engage, that was in the 10th Parliament. He's one of those people I used to enjoy following their contributions in the House, the kind of things they were saying. And then I fell in love with Parliament and hope that one day God will grant me the chance to be in this House. A little years down the line, Mr. Speaker, I had the chance, and we have, as fate will have it, we have finally been teamed up together in one team and doing our duty here in the Senate. Senator Mungatana, Mr. Speaker, has proposed to this House a very interesting bill. If you read the title, the Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill 2022, it's quite a mouthful. And when you think about everything that he tries to do in one particular bill, Mr. Speaker, then you think through and imagine that for sure it will be quite a humongous task. Yet it's a duty, as he has properly espoused in his moving notes, Mr. Speaker, that we must live up to. Economic and social rights, Mr. Speaker, as provided for in our Constitution. I don't think Kenyans in 2020, when they passed this Constitution, did so without due consideration and thinking through that which they intended to achieve in every village, educating people and calling public barazas, informing people. And you remember, because of who we are as politicians, Mr. Speaker, many politicians actually were quoting non-existent clauses in our Constitution. And when members of the public went to these barazas, it was not unusual for them to rise up and ask questions, things like, so-and-so, thank you for finding time to come and educate us on this Constitution. Is it true that you're allowing men and men to marry each other? Then they'd be taken through close and be told, please, open this book. This is our Constitution. See what Article XYZ says, that marriage recognized by this Constitution is only between those of the opposite gender. Then people will sit down and say, oh, okay, if that is the case, then correct. And the same can be said about our economic and social rights, Mr. Speaker. There was a long debate about it, because I remember there was a debate even about what form of government are you proposing? Is it socialism? You remember? Because there had been the conversation about Majimboism in the 2005 infamous Kilifi draft. And there are people that had been informed members of the public and said, upon the passage of this Constitution, if you have 100 acres of land and your neighbor has 5, it will be put together and will be shared equally amongst yourselves. And they'd go down to the Constitution and say, no, look at a particular clause. That afforded people the opportunity to read through the Bill of Rights, through your economic rights, the right to own property, Mr. Speaker. And somebody knew that the property that I have, nobody is going to touch it on account of the fact that I voted in this Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, that we are gathered here today, and it is taking a bill of parliament to enforce, Mr. Speaker, is still part of the beauty of our democracy. That we know that a constitutional provision alone is not enough for our people to enjoy their economic and social rights, is not enough for them or for their dignity actually to be preserved, Mr. Speaker. That is why this bill, despite all the challenges and all the conversations that have arisen about it, I am aware that members of Justice and Legal Affairs have got very strong views about certain clauses in this bill. And I have read part of what they are proposing to us. I listen to them because I know Justice and Legal Affairs to be one of the most diligent committees of this House. And I look forward to listening to the conversation or the exposition that will be made about this particular bill by members of that committee, so that we understand what is it that they feel that there are clauses in this bill, Mr. Speaker, that are in direct conflict or actually overlap with other constitutional commissions or with other statutory bodies that have already been set up by statute, Mr. Speaker. Be that as it may, we must have a conversation. And I love the fact that this bill pricks our conscience to believe and to be mindful about the welfare of every citizen, because our constitution has guaranteed that all these rights belong to all and every member of the country that is Kenya. The unfortunate thing, Mr. Speaker, is that given that we are a capitalist society, we have been nurtured and socialized to believe that so long as I'm eating in my house, even my next door neighbor, even if I know for a fact that last night they slept hungry, I'll still wake up and have my breakfast and dress up and go to work without a care in the world. And it begs the question, who do we give the duty to think, to consider, to ensure that you enforce and ensure that every citizen enjoys what is rightfully theirs under this constitution? That, wholesomely, Mr. Speaker, is what this bill seeks and intends to do. It intends to remind us that there are those members of our society who, for one reason or the other, perhaps have a difficulty in life. And Senator Mungatana, in his moving notes, has quoted various examples across the globe. Most of the members of this House are well-traveled. How do you feel when you travel to various parts, different capitals of the world, and you see how other organized and civilized societies take care of their underprivileged? Yet we know in this country, we just allow them to live in slums and we think that it is okay. That's why I must appreciate, Mr. Speaker, part of the work that is being done by this administration under the affordable housing program. Just the fact that you can have a decent roof over your head is already part of the realization of the economic and social rights that this bill is talking about, Mr. Speaker. That we have a plan.
Order, Majority Leader. Majority Leader, you have some almost 50 minutes because you have 1 hour to second, so you have some enough minutes next session. I mean next sitting. Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m. Time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 28th March 2023 at 2:30 p.m.